Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. Super T's here with another video, and this one is going to be a Guardian Druid playthrough. In this particular match, of course, I'm running Warrior, Restoration Shaman, Guardian, and I'm fighting a pretty standard composition, Rogue, Mage, Paladin. You're going to see this comp a lot, so it is very important to understand how to play against it when you are playing a Guardian Druid. Most Guardian Druid melee cleaves will play similarly to this, so the strategies that I go over will apply to you, basically any melee cleave composition that you are deciding to run. Now, my main goal is to be on top of the partner who is being attacked by the rogue. So I want to know at all times who is the rogue attacking. Now, my team has been pushing rating for some time. We're going to be trying to go for 3K rating. We're just about hitting the 2,800 mark at this point. We've been learning a lot along the way, still making some mistakes, but definitely been able to climb. I will say that you need to have patience. This is not a composition that I would suggest playing overly aggressive. You, again, want to always make sure that you're standing next to your partner and that you're protecting them, providing them protector of the pack and den mother, as this is an increased amount of health and damage redirection to yourself. Now, because the Mage and the Paladin were stalling a bit, I decided to open on the Paladin from stealth with Bash. Now, this is an aggressive stance, but we really just wanted to get the fight going, and this is where I'm trying to disseminate who are they attacking. Well, now my Shaman is polymorphed, so unlikely they're going to be attacking him. They don't want to break that crowd control, so they are likely attacking the Warrior. So I'm keeping my eye on the Warrior, and I'm always staying next to him for as much as I can, and this means that we'll be attacking the Rogue. Although when the Warrior is being attacked, you usually do want to be going after the Mage. This is only if they are running Greater Pyroblast. I believe when we were fighting this team, we may have been able to analyze that the Mage was not running Greater Pyroblast, and we wanted to see if we could run the Paladin out of mana faster attacking the Rogue, because the Rogue's going to have a lot harder of a time avoiding being hit than the Mage would in this particular matchup. Now here you can see Stormbolt was used on the Rogue. It was used during Blessing of Freedom. Blessing of Freedom allows the target to move freely, and he'll be able to escape our damage. So using a stun during Blessing of Freedom is wise and advised. Now the Rogue is really avoiding the fight, so instead we switch to the Mage, who is the closest target, and we begin attacking them. Now this Rogue Mage Paladin is playing a lot differently than what you may face at lower ratings, but you still just want to keep on your toes. I've noticed that the Rogue was starting to attack my Shaman, so I immediately go back to the Rogue. I don't spend time chasing the Mage and getting pulled into a bad position where you can be Dragon's Breath into Ring of Frost or Hammer of Justice out of range of your team, and I'm still keeping my eye on the Rogue. Now, I'm noticing that this team is starting to just run away defensively. Likely they're looking for an all-in kill in Dampening with a Gladiator's Maledict or similarly to this, but I'm not sure if that strategy will be the best for them overall, so in reality, we're just doing our best to maximize damage and run the Paladin out of mana. In this particular matchup, I'm running Conflict and Strife. This gives me versatility, reduces a lot of damage when I am stunned, and I am choosing to take an extra honor talent. This is Overrun. This allows me a little bit of extra mobility and disruption in the particular match, and it allows me to use Wild Charge to normally get back to the target that is being hit most often. So our first couple 3 minutes in the game, we're hitting the Rogue. We weren't really getting anywhere, so instead we decided to switch a little bit more to the Mage because of how passive this team was playing. And by going after the Mage, if the Rogue is attacking the Warrior, the Rogue and the Mage will be next to each other. We can get Thrash applied to 2 targets. We can Bladestorm on 2 targets. So going after the Mage is going to maximize your damage, but it can be a bit more risky. You want to make sure that you've always got the Rogue in your sights, as the Rogue may try and re-stealth, as he almost did there. So use Moonfire to hit the Rogue to prevent him from re-stealthing. You remove a lot of extra damage from his Garrote and some extra crowd control as well. So always keeping your eye on the Rogue when fighting Rogue Mage and making sure that you're next to the target that he is trying to go after. But this team is still playing very passive. It's likely that they're intending to retain as much mana as they can into Dampening. So it's at this point that we've decided to allocate more crowd control offensively. We used Incapacitating Roar into a full Intimidating Shout. This is a nice crowd control chain between the Druid and the Warrior on the Paladin. And we really hammered down on the Rogue, and we got him to 20% health and almost killed him at that point. Then when the Rogue was unable to be targeted, we immediately switched to whoever was nearby. It was the Paladin in this case. Now the Mage is the most nearby. Now, of course, keeping your eye on the Rogue, right? So our Shaman is the most mobile in this position as we're attacking attacking the mage, and we've used a lot of mobility already. So the shaman's job then becomes to keep an eye on the rogue. And later on the game, it's the shaman's responsibility to watch the paladin as he may be trying to drink. But this team is doing their best to have as much mana as they can moving into Dampening. So if you're fighting a rogue mage that is playing this passively, I would suggest that you start allocating a bit more crowd control into the paladin. You can use things like Overrun to stun the paladin, and then Wild Charge to get back to your target. In this position, my shaman is polymorphed. The paladin has Avenging Wrath up. It's really unlikely that we're going to kill anything, and it's more likely that we die. So you can see that I casted Regrowth, Rejuvenation, and if I needed to, I could use Swift Mend. I used Incapacitating Roar on the Rogue and the Mage. That's kind of my defensive go-to. If I have Bash or Overrun available, I will try to use those as well. If my party member is stunned, as you can see in this position, I'm not next to the target the rogue is attacking. So I need to immediately get back to the warrior as Vendetta has been popped on him. If Vendetta has been popped, I would suggest using Dispel on the target that it's popped, because it will usually apply a poison. The rogues are typically running an Azerite trait that adds an extra poison when they pop Vendetta. It's also wise to use Dispel on the target the rogue is attacking when the rogue is crowd controlled. This is because the rogue won't reapply their poisons. Here you can see again, Intimidating Shout into Incapacitating Roar, crowd control chain on the paladin, and we target the mage down and try to do as much damage as we can. Of course, we're playing a tank comp, so it's not always going to be the case that you get some sort of bursty kill in this window of opportunity, but it's still putting the paladin behind so that when he comes out of the crowd control, hopefully he's expending more mana than he would if we hadn't applied the crowd control. So because earlier on I made the mistake of not standing next to my warrior at all times because this team was playing so passively, I got a little bit ahead of myself on just trying to end the game. I'm really focusing in on supporting my warrior. Here I see my shaman being pressured with crowd control, so what do? Swift Mend, Rejuvenation, Regrowth, and I start using interrupts there on a polymorph to prevent the second polymorph on my shaman. I would say that it's usually better to interrupt the second polymorph on your healer than the first one, because the mage will just cycle infinitely until the interrupts are all over. Then they'll be able to get 3 sheeps in a row. That's a lot more dangerous. Now, of course, this mage is also not running Greater Pyroblast, which is not standard, so you may have to use Skull Bash on Greater Pyroblast, but I would typically save my interrupt and, again, communicate with my team. Here in this position, my shaman is in a polymorph, so I have a choice. I could heal a little bit, but instead I use Skull Bash to interrupt the second polymorph. This then means my shaman's on diminishing returns. It's not worth it for the mage to stay in the fight, really. He's going to try and retreat, but we get a lot of time to maximize damage. And if my shaman is falling behind at any point or needs to reposition, I will then cast some heals out to support them. But you can see as we get into Dampening that our composition's damage really starts to become more relevant. So Intimidating Shout there into a full Hex, although Hex can be dispelled by a mage, so I wouldn't recommend using Hex in that manner. It will put Incapacitating Roar on diminishing return. But because we have no mobility to get to the mage, we immediately just start attacking the target that is nearest because they are running away again. So if a team is trying to do this where they're just running away from you, which it may not be the case at lower ratings, this team was really trying to play for some sort of all-in. Now I see my shaman in a polymorph on my raid frames to the left, and I see this brown-gray bar start stacking on my warrior. Now this is Gladiator's Maledict. That is the most dangerous trinket against our composition, so you need to try and power through that, disrupt as much crowd control as you can, and it's usually where you'll use your most powerful defensive cooldowns. As you can see, the Spirit Link Totem is one of our best defensive cooldowns, and because they crowd controlled the shaman, and they applied Gladiator's Maledict to prevent my healing and my support, we trade a cooldown for that situation. And you want to make sure that you're not overlapping Die by the Sword with Spirit Link Totem. You want to make sure that you're not overlapping any significant crowd control, like an Intimidating Shout or even a Bash with that, because you need to elongate the fight until Dampening is high enough that you can overwhelm the target that you're trying to go after. And in this case, we're going after the mage, and cleaving the rogue is an off target. You really want to maintain your Thrash at 3 stacks for as much as possible on 2 targets, and maintain Moonfire on every target. I would also say include Moonfire on the Paladin, as it's unlikely that he will be able to heal himself as well as the Mage and the Rogue. He's going to put Beacon on a target and heal 2 of those, but if Moonfire's slowly whittling down his health and Dampening, he'll then have to start allocating heals on himself, which costs mana. Here we start using Intimidating Shout defensively, because this team's main strategy was to drag this fight on to deep into Dampening, and then start going for bursty kills. So we switch gears, we start using Intimidating Shout to save ourselves. And in this position, the Paladin will start to drink, so it's going to be the Shaman's job to try and go across the map. You can use Earthbind Totem and Earth Elemental. Earth Elemental is a great way to stop a healer from drinking. Here my Shaman is polymorphed. You see that gray health bar on my warrior? That's Glaire's Maledict. This is a very scary moment in time. This is where I decide to allocate my bash, and I start trying to disrupt some incoming crowd control or damage, and this is when I start to heal, and I try to soak interrupts for my healer. So even though I didn't get the regrowth, the rogue used kick on me. Now my Shaman doesn't need to deal with kick. We survived the Maledict. We survived the crowd control. It's time for us to go in and attack. But the Paladin has Avenging Wrath up. So to stop him from healing with that cooldown, I moved over and skull bashed him, interrupting his heal, and then immediately getting Ice Block. Now, Ice Block and Avenging Wrath are cooldowns the other team doesn't want to press at the same time. Because they press them both at the same time, it puts us ahead. Now, look, my Shaman's in a polymorph. That health bar is starting to stack up. They've used a Gladiator's Maledict. This is the scariest moment in the game. You want to focus purely on defense and healing, no matter what. Even down to the last second, you can see at 1%, I'm casting Regrowth and Rejuve, and I'm expending my entire mana pool right during that moment in time. And then as soon as we come out, I use Bash, and this is to stop some of the incoming pressure so my Shaman can recover. We have a lot of damage onto 3 targets. This is a result of making sure that you're keeping Moonfire on 3 targets and Thrash on as many targets as you can. If the Paladin comes close, you want to be really paying attention so you can hit that Thrash, just a tiny little bit of extra damage, but it'll go a long way in dampening when you're trying to run him out of mana. Another good combination of spells is Stampeding Roar with Blade Storm. This way, the warrior will just get back to the target, not have to use Heroic Leap or Charge. This is a great way to reconnect for yourself as well. We start using Stormbolt to hold the mage in place, and I'm getting a bit cheeky, charging over to the Paladin with Overrun, using it as a stun to disrupt his healing. Because we're so deep into dampening, it's usually when the timer at the top says 15 minutes, you can start using a little bit of crowd control on the Paladin and Skull Bash earlier, but here, Shaman is polymorphed, Warrior is low on health. I use Bash on a target that doesn't have a way to get out. The Rogue didn't have Glaire's Medallion there for another 5 seconds or so, so I bash the Rogue, I prevent him from attacking, I dispel the poisons, and I try and heal him as much as I can. As soon as he's out of the crowd control, our Shaman decides to allocate Spirit Link Totem. This is more or less because Dampening is almost unhealable. We're in like the 50-60% mark at this point, so you just want to start rotating 1 cooldown at a time, but not 2 at a time like the team did earlier with Ice Block and Avenging Wrath. So we still hold on to Die by the Sword. Here the team stacks up, so I use Incapacitating Roar, which disorients them just for a couple of seconds. But again, Shaman's in a polymorph. I'm going to stand next to my Rogue, but because my Shaman used Earthen Wall Totem before being crowd controlled, that green totem on the ground, I don't need to heal that much, but I still try to do my best to support because my warrior is stunned, my Shaman is polyed. I'm just a tank. I'm not going to do too much on my own, so it's better to make sure that my team makes it out of that moment. But we're getting to that win condition where the Paladin has 0 mana, his team is dying, Dampening is at a point where his healing is no longer too effective. You just want to make sure that you're maintaining defensives. So to stay aggressive, we use Intimidating Shout that hit 3 players, and it got 2 Gladiators Medallions. So now the Rogue and the Paladin can't escape crowd control, and the Paladin is just struggling to recover. Earlier we got Ice Block, and this push we got Cauterize. Then I charged to the Paladin with Overrun while my Warrior goes to the Mage to finish off the Mage. Now you can see this is a very slow-paced composition, and I'm playing incredibly safe. I would recommend this if you want to guarantee victory for yourself and your team, is to just focus on defense and surviving all of their attacks until you get to a point where you can overwhelm the team. I hope that this video was helpful to you in your journeys with whatever it is that you're going to try to do with Guardian Druid and Arena. I'm going to continue the grind, and I hope to see you along the way. Of course, check me out on twitch.tv/Supatees, as I'm doing my best to stream there as often as I can. My team's coming back from the holidays, so hopefully I will get more main team games going for all of you. And until next time, we'll see you in another video. Peace out.